Hello, fans, collectors, and investors. Welcome back to Iconic Baseball. I am Iconic Al, and I am delighted to be jumping back into the countdown at number 46 today. Now, this is an epic figure in baseball lore. He is a guy who is a tragic figure because he was banned from the sport back in 1919 when he and some of his teammates were accused of throwing the World Series. Although his play would suggest otherwise, it is likely that he accepted money, and that was enough to get him banned from baseball during the prime of his career. Now, he was one of the true greats and one of the greatest hitters the game has ever seen. In fact, Babe Ruth is said to have modeled his left-handed swing after this man. He's a .356 career hitter with a .423 on-base percentage. Now, this guy's legacy will continue forever because he's been immortalized in pop culture. Maybe this clip rings a bell.
Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so.
And maybe this clip looks somewhat familiar.
Hi. Ray Kinsella.
Joe Jackson.
I'm talking about a man who has captured the imagination of fans and collectors for generations, and will for generations to come. I'm talking about the great Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Here we have one of the most intriguing players in baseball history. Before I talk about my Shoeless Joe card or get into the collecting market for Joe Jackson, I need to give a little background on this guy. Joe Jackson was born in 1887 in South Carolina. His family was dirt poor, and starting at age 7, Jackson worked in one of the town's textile mills as a mill hand. Family finances required Joe to take 12-hour shifts in the mill, and since education was a luxury the Jackson family couldn't afford, Jackson was uneducated and illiterate, even through adulthood. His wife often signed his name for him, which is why authentic signatures for Joe Jackson fetch the kind of prices they fetch. We'll get into that later. In restaurants, rather than ask someone to read the menu to him, he would wait until his teammates ordered and then order one of the items he heard. He started playing baseball for the Mills baseball team at 13 years old and developed into a phenomenal talent. His hitting ability made him a celebrity around town. Eventually, he moved from mill team to mill team in search of better pay. He ended up playing semi-pro baseball by the age of 18. Around this time, he was given a baseball bat that he named Black Betsy, a very famous bat in baseball lore. The nickname Shoeless Joe, I'm sure this is what everyone wants to know. Where did that come from? Well, in an interview published in 1949, Jackson himself recalled that he got his nickname during a mill game played in Greenville, South Carolina. Jackson had blisters on his feet from a new pair of cleats, which hurt so much that he took his shoes off before going up to bat. As play continued, a heckling fan noticed Jackson running to third base in his socks and shouted, "You shoeless son of a gun, you!" And the resulting nickname, Shoeless Joe, stuck with him throughout the remainder of his life. Joe Jackson as a major league ball player. What a special talent. It's a tragic story of greatness, banned in its prime. Unlike with Pete Rose, who was able to play out his entire career before he was eventually banned from baseball, Joe Jackson was banned at the age of 33 after just 11 or 12 seasons of play. He still had time in the game. All that being said, if you look at his numbers, they are befuddling. He compiled 62.2 WAR during his career. His career batting average was .356. So many crazy numbers here. His career on base percentage was .423. His OPS was .940. His OPS plus was .170. This is a higher OPS plus than Jimmy Fox. When you look deeper at his numbers, especially using the modern metrics that we have access to now, Joe Jackson looks better and better and better. There are crazy things that he did. He hit .408 in 1911 as a rookie. That's the highest rookie batting average in baseball history to this day. And you would think, oh, .408, he won the batting title that year. Nope. Came in second to Ty Cobb, who hit .419. It's one of the few occurrences in baseball history where a .400 average did not secure someone a batting title. Another tidbit, he scored the first run in Tiger Stadium back in April of 1912. So many great stories surrounding Shoeless Joe, so much great history, which is what adds to his legacy beyond his immortalization in Hollywood, which I touched on in the intro. 8 Men Out, what a great movie, one of my favorite baseball movies. Field of Dreams, obviously, features Joe Jackson. Ray Liotta as Joe Jackson. And so he's one of those guys whose iconic value is magnified beyond his stats. His legacy will continue forever. So let's get into some of the collecting market here for Joe Jackson. As I mentioned, because he was illiterate, his wife signed his name much of his life. Autographs for Joe Jackson are essentially non-existent. So the ones that do exist are ridiculous. Tens of thousands of dollars is where they start. So we kind of take that out of the equation right away for most of us, myself included. And in the sports card market, you have to kind of dive deep. And I'd recommend anybody that's looking to look deep into issues from this era, the Shoeless Joe era, get the standard catalog of baseball cards and just flip through it. That's, one of the best references that I've ever found to look at pre-war issues, vintage cards, and you can really learn a lot about food issues and other really obscure issues from back in the day, because they just don't surface very much. Just to make a few examples, some of the great Shoeless Joe issues. Now, these are very expensive cards. Anything that came out during Shoeless Joe's playing days is extremely expensive. So let's just put out a few examples. The 1909 E90-1 American Caramel, the 1913 National Game, the 1919-1921 W514 strip cards, really beautiful. The T210 Old Mill, just a very iconic and pricey card. The 1916 M101-5. There's a lot of options, but they're all extremely expensive. My personal favorite being the 1915 Cracker Jack Shoeless Joe. I just think that whole set is glorious, and the Shoeless Joe is just a marvelous image. The card goes in the 5 figures, so it's a dream card for me, one I will never own, but I digress. The card that I will probably target in the future is the 1940 Play Ball, because I think it's the most, it's the best card in that set, the 1940 Play Ball set. It's after his playing days a bit, but it's still pre-war, and it's still, got that vintage mojo going for it, and it's a nice image of Jackson swinging, finishing a swing. And so that's the one that I will probably target in a very low grade, maybe a 1.5 or a 2, and that'll be one that I probably save up for and go after one of these years. Again, it's still a pretty pricey card. Usually it goes for a couple grand, even in very low grade. So it's one of those cards that's it's a grail for me, and that's the one that I'm probably going to target going forward for Shoeless Joe. Now, the one card that I do have for Shoeless Joe is the 2001 Legendary Cuts, SP Legendary Cuts, and this is a bat card. And this is pretty special. I really love this card, and I really love this whole set, to be honest. One of the most beautiful memorabilia card sets that have ever been released, and this was right around the beginning of when memorabilia cards came about. And this is back when, you would actually get a description. It's a little bit small for me to see here, but essentially it tells you, included on this card is a piece of bat used by Joe Jackson in an official MLB game. So we know that the Upper Deck Company had access to an authentic Joe Jackson game-used bat, and that is something that we know for sure. And, as long as you trust the Upper Deck Company, which I do, you can trust that this piece of wood was actually from a game-used bat that Shoeless Joe used in a game, which is pretty cool. It's way cooler than these junk memorabilia cards that they're releasing now, where it's just kind of like random piece of jersey or random piece of wood or coin from the year where this guy played. I just don't understand that stuff. Like what makes that cool? But yeah, this is back when memorabilia cards were actual game used material, which I think for guys like Joe Jackson really will hold up over time, because I just can't see the material being very abundant. There may be only a handful of verified game-used bats of Shoeless Joe Jackson in the world. And to think that they would be continually chipped up and put into cards, with the prices that they are now probably fetching, it's unlikely. So I think these will hold up very well over time. PSA has only graded 59 of these, and there have only been 4 10s. So that's one of the things that I probably will grade this at some point. Probably not going to get a 10, but even in an 8 or a 9, it would be a really worthwhile card to get graded, and even just slabbed and authenticated. But one of my favorite memorabilia cards in my collection. It's definitely my top 3. And while we're at it, since Joe Jackson, was influential on one man that we know for sure, and it ties in with this set, I figured I'd just squeak this in here. From the same set, this is my Babe Ruth bat card from that 2001 SP Legendary Cuts. Again, gives you that full description on the back where, yes indeed, this was from a bat used in an MLB game by the great Bambino, who modeled his swing after Mr. Joe Jackson. So 2 of my all-time favorite memorabilia cards right there, and one of my all-time favorite memorabilia sets. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. This is one of those videos that I was really excited to do, just because of the iconic status and overall hobby mojo of Shoeless Joe. He really holds a special place in my heart and in most collectors' hearts. And again, if you haven't subscribed already, I highly recommend you do so. And until next time, keep collecting and stay iconic.